Moses, how did you get into media and marketing? Like, where did that come from?
Yeah, so before even college, I was always interested in photo and video. Ever since I was, a little kid and I watched Spider-Man and I saw Tobey Maguire being a photographer and I wanted to be like Spider-Man, so I got into it a little bit. So we have, random videos of us at a campsite and I'm doing a campsite tour.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like 6 years old, 7 years old with a big old VHS camera
Mm-hmm.
on. So that's kind of where the video and photo love started. And then when I got figuring out what I want to do in college, I was a business marketing major. So
Mm-hmm.
then, you know, just kind of once I saw the overlap with those two, it just kind of, my mom is the one that kind of helped me make sense of that, being like, you like
Mm-hmm.
photo and video, there's a need for it in real estate.
Yep.
And I always had the entrepreneurial mindset. So it just kind of worked out really organically.
Yeah, 100%. That's interesting. So, like, you have a very similar. So, wait, you went into video marketing right out of college when you were doing college?
So I graduated high school 2019
Mm-hmm.
and then went to the university or Judson University in Elgin, Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
And then during my first years when COVID hit and we came home. And so during that time I came home, my high school sweetheart, who I'm still with, we found out we were pregnant and having a child. So transferred to the University of Redlands, where I continued to study business and play football. And then that's kind of where I started the business from there. So I'm finishing up my last class at the University of Redlands, actually. So
That's
still getting my business degree officially,
mm-hmm.
but yeah, so started it all while being a student.
That's dope, man. I live right next to the university.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like walking there all the time with my dog. Ruben, how did you get into real estate? Like, where did it start for you?
Yeah, so it's a long story. So I'm over 20 years in now. Initially, the genesis was to work with fellow Marines and fellow veterans
Mm,
and help them realize that home ownership opportunity. And it was also to invest. And so I was working full time in corporate America in the pharmaceutical industry and got my license and was working part time. And so, but the original motivation was to really help veterans increase that percentage of home ownership, and then also to invest so I can increase my net wealth and net worth as well. So those were the
mm.
two primary reasons. And then from there, it just organically grew into, a firm with multiple offices across 2 states. It's all
Um,
organic growth.
Tell me about that. Like, first of all, what do you mean, like, organic growth?
Yeah. So I'm a believer of not forcing anything. I've heard people say over the years, and it's all over social media, like fake it till you make it. I
Mm,
absolutely do not agree with that statement. Just, I believe that you need to grind. You need to identify who you are, understand who you are, identify your niche, right, or niche, and go after it. And when you do it that way, things tend to just grow on their own. Like the Boots to Suits program, EGA Homes, the Veteran Housing Alliance, a nonprofit. People will ask, like, how did you develop all this? And I said, well, to be honest with you, it wasn't a master plan. I believe that when you work within your persona or who you are as an individual, as a professional, as a person, you work within your passion of what you really care about in life, and you begin to develop an opportunity to help other people that share those values, it starts to grow on its own. And so as much as I like to say there was this big master plan and everything was methodical, it really was not. It was,
mhm.
you have a passion and a purpose, you pursue that, and it begins to monetize itself, and then you continue to grow. You attract other people like Moses came on board for that reason,
Mhm.
and it took on a life of its own, and now it's systematically scaling itself.
Mhm.
It's amazing journey.
Yeah, 100%. And then you said that so you're a vet, right?
I'm a Marine, yes.
Marine. Damn, dude. Dude, I watched the I watched those like YouTube videos of boot camp and what do they call it? Buds? I think that's what it's called. Something
That
like that.
we have. You might be talking about Force Recon and boot camp,
Mhm.
basic. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Hell Week, all that, dude.
Oh, Hell Week, the
So,
Crucible. Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. I'm like, man, anytime I hear somebody that came from the Marines or Navy, I'm like, oh man, the hell that y'all went through in
Yeah. So
order
in
to.
my era, so I'm Desert Storm era. I'm pre 9/11,
Mhm.
and then did my combat tour and back then we didn't have a lot of the technology, so everything really was just figure things out again organically. Kind of we in the military, the Marine Corps, they call it fire for effect. right? So you
Mm,
fire and kind of see where the round lands, and then you determine on how to make adjustments and tweak and calibrate things so that you're most effective in battle. So it's the
mm.
same thing out here. We fire for effect, and then we can make adjustments to make sure that we're on point and we're
Yeah.
accomplishing that mission. It's pretty cool.
Do you see any, I would say, like parallels in how you all executed? I wouldn't even know what to call them. Missions
Yeah, our
in the
mission.
Marines?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. How you all as a team like executed those missions and then how you execute achieving business goals. Did you see any like parallels between those? Did you see any similarities in whether it be like goal setting or teamwork, or did you see any similarities in that sense?
Yeah, so originally, I did not. So originally, when I first, they call it EAS, which is end your active service career. When I first got out, it was just survival mode. It was trying to get a job because back then we didn't have the nonprofits, we didn't have a lot of the resources that they have now. And so we literally, and I know that there are a lot of viewers and listeners that are going to say, "Wow, I remember those days." We literally had to figure it out. And so at that time, when I was looking for a job, I didn't even put Marine Corps on my resume because back then we were more of a liability than we were an asset, right?
Mm,
Especially if you're a combat, Marine or veteran, and they're like, okay, well, how is that going to correlate to helping my company be successful? So it wasn't even something that I put on my resume initially.
mm,
And then things started to evolve and technology started to take root. And then they started to correlate military service with leadership, mission accomplishment, mindset, going from point A to point B. Same thing with sports. There's correlations in sports as well. But that's when I started to really correlate it. So what I did was I said, rather than reinvent the wheel, why don't I take a Marine Corps standard operating procedure manual, which I did, right? I took that Marine Corps manual and I correlated it to real estate. So rather than an MOS, which is a military occupational specialty, I created ROS, which is a real estate occupational specialty. So going back to niche marketing, right? You can focus on investors or first-time home buyers, or you can
mhm,
focus on any niche within real estate, residential, commercial, industrial, land, right? Development. Everything it's such an eclectic discipline, and it's an eclectic industry. And so that's when I really started to understand the parallels, as you mentioned, between Marine Corps key attributes of success and business key attributes of success. And I started to connect those
mm.
two, leveraging the Marine Corps Standard Operating Procedure Manual. And that's why it actually became EGA Homes, which is Eagle Globe and Anchor Homes, which is the Marine Corps logo.
Dang, dude. That's
Yeah, it was all predicated on culture. It was all predicated on leadership. But
mhm,
again, when you get out in your 20s, you're trying to figure life out, trying to get a job. And, again, nobody helped us with that transition. We literally had a sea bag. We put it on our front doorstep. I didn't even unpack my sea bag initially. And I went straight to community college and I went straight to look for a job. That's how I did it.
mhm,
And there was no opportunity to network as much as it is now, leveraging social media. So we literally had to talk to people and say, hey, man, like, do you know anybody hiring?
mhm.
Or do you know how to get classes? Like, how do I get classes? And so we would help each other out in that capacity.
I think it's nuts how you actually took one of the, I'm sorry if I mispronounce it too. So the MOS you turn into an ROS. And so
Correct.
it's an, yeah, it's an actual like, I would say like from what I understand, a procedures manual. And so yeah, and so
And you have to know that in and out. Like, you have to know it in and out. And so the Marine Corps and the military in general, they do a really good job of identifying your strengths, right?
mm,
That's why you take an ASVAB. All branches of the military take an ASVAB. And based on how you score on that ASVAB dictates to a great extent your MOS, right? So if you're, really good at, a certain key skill, they're going to apply that skill to help the military, the Marine Corps, and the military in general accomplish their mission. That's how they maximize or optimize. Same thing in real estate. If you look at your strength, you might be a great networker, great door knocker. You might be great at technology, like you two are.
mhm,
And so we want to apply those strengths to help the organization's overall mission. And that's how. And that it's nothing, tremendously innovative, but it's just intuitive. So
mm,
when I was a young, from the time I can remember being a young kid, I was always intuitive. I grew up in a very tough neighborhood called Rubidoux, California, which was annexed into Harupa Valley now, but it was a very tough neighborhood. We had our gangs, we had our issues. And so whenever you walk to school, you start to develop intuition on what route to take, right, or how to get from point A to point B in the most efficient manner without getting jumped or getting your butt kicked. Well, it's
mhm.
the same thing in business. You want to go from point A to point B as efficiently as possible without getting your butt kicked. So
Yeah.
it's the same concept.
Yeah. That's amazing. Have you categorized or segmented real estate agents in any way in the sense in what you're talking about, not only like personality types, but also strengths and like
100%.
the long term
100%.
goals?
So not only did we segment that, we actually first had to realize all of the different functions of a real estate agent. So the real estate agent does on average 13 full-time jobs. If you were doing your own marketing, your own taxes, your buying side, your selling side, right? If you're doing everything that you need to do to be a specialist, it would be 13 full-time jobs. And the reason I know that is because I mentioned I took that Marine Corps Standard Operating Procedure Manual, correlated to real estate, but I also drew an organizational chart and a function chart to understand how do we maximize each discipline within the real estate industry. So we did that. And I was like, man, how can a realtor do 13 full-time jobs? It's impossible. So we have to outsource. So, right. So then you find that concept of like realtors dabbling rather than being a specialist. So we had to overcome that hump. So by identifying their skills, right, you also have to overcome and create an understanding that in order to be highly effective in real estate, you have to specialize. You cannot be vanilla. It doesn't mean that you're limiting yourself, right? It just means that people have to know you as a specialist in a certain area because you build that brand equity and people know that they can go to you not only for that function, but for peripheral functions as well. Now, if you do the opposite, you don't necessarily get the benefit. Okay. So if you just say, hey, I'm going to be vanilla, but somebody needs a commercial transaction, they may not go to you for that reason because they're like, I don't think they do commercial, right? That happens. But if you Google us, if you Google, Ruben Hernandez, EJ Homes, or what have you, you'll see that we have a very high presence in the VA niche market, right? In the VA, because we dominate that market. However, I do 11 to $20 million in commercial every year. And a lot of those leads come from the fact that they know me as a VA specialist, right? So there's a residual benefit that a lot of people can't quantify or understand. But if you specialize, you really are going to get a lot of benefit out of it.
One of the reasons why I feel that we have a high failure rate in the real estate world is because that's one of the things that we're not taught. I speak to a lot of real estate agents, and I was on an appointment the other day with a real estate agent, and she was telling me, I was like, well, what type of transactions are you trying to do? And she was like, any type. She's like, give me
Right.
commercial, give me residential, give me,
Right.
give me anything. And it's interesting because you get it though, because they're just starting. And they're like, any paycheck, give me a lease, give me a,
Correct.
$300 from a lease or whatever it is. And so like in that starving mode for a real estate agent that is brand new, what would you advise them to do on how to transition over to the mentality of niching down?
Yeah. So that's an easy one. It's not entirely intuitive because, as you mentioned, a lot of times when you first come in the business, you need to get that paycheck, right? You want to get paid. But when you realize that this is probably the most important purchase or sale that anybody's going to make in their lifetime, right? You start to kind of like weigh the checks and balances of like, look, I have not only a fiduciary responsibility, but I have an ethical responsibility to make sure that I'm not just looking at that paycheck. I'm really doing what's in that client's best interest. That's the first thing we need to realize. Because if we're chasing a paycheck and we're willing to compromise our values and stuff in order to get that, that's a problem, right? That's a problem for many reasons. But the first thing that I would advise, what we do in our firm, is we do exactly what you said. We try to look at those strengths and now provide that ROS mentality, that real estate occupational specialist mentality. And it's based on what you're most passionate about, right? So I'll ask them straight, like, it's just a very easy question. So, Cameron, like, what are you most passionate about real estate? Why real estate? Like, why are you getting in the industry? And you'll say, you know what?
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
go
Yeah,
ahead.
let's role play. That's perfect.
Yeah, because I was gonna say like home ownership, just the ability to give that. I mean, this isn't me, but like hypothetically, my family
Sure.
hasn't. We don't come from that background of like owning real estate, and I want to change that for my family.
I love that. And then I would reinforce that to say that studies show that if you actually buy real estate, you start to acquire an inventory or assets, then your next generation is more likely to do the same. So not only are you benefiting your life and the lives of your children and family and friends and those that love you, but you're creating a legacy for future generations as well. And I would ask, are you aware of that? Right. And you might say yes or no. And I say, okay, so you find a passion in helping people realize that dream of home ownership, right? In what capacity do you find yourself most effective? Are you comfortable with technology? Are you comfortable like just networking with your family and friends? So we got to peel that onion back to really find the nucleus of what motivates you, what's your purpose and passion, and what that why is. And then once we develop that, it's game over. Like we're going to empower you with the resources to help you go from point A to point B, because real estate's just a vehicle, right? We could sell golf gloves, we could sell shoes, we could sell anything. But if we have real estate with passion and purpose, one, it doesn't feel like a job anymore. Two, you don't have to worry about a paycheck because you're going to make more money than ever when you don't lead with the paycheck as your primary priority. But more importantly, man, life is going to be so balanced for you, and it's going to really, really allow you to provide the value that those clients deserve.
Yeah. I feel like all the big brokerages, they all have the best tools. They all have the best technology. They all have the best everything you need in order to excel at a high rate for any real estate professional. Commercial, residential, doesn't matter. And then I just question, I'm like, why aren't they then? Like, why aren't real estate agents excelling with everything that they have? Have you noticed that as well?
Oh, of course. Yeah. So I'll sum that up.
Mm-hmm.
First off, it's a great question. And it's one that all broker owners battle with. And I actually started EGA Homes, 20 years ago or so, the genesis of it, and then incorporated in 2009. And so the fundamental question was this, do we want to be one of many players in a big real estate market, or do we want to really dominate a smaller piece of that pizza or pie or whatever you want to call it, right? And so we had to make a determination that for us, and then I coordinated back to the Marine Corps again, as you asked, and I said, why do we join the Corps? I joined at 17. Why do we join the Corps, right? Do we do it for the money? I'm like, no. Do we do it for the travel? Definitely not, especially when you're in combat. Do we do it? What do we do it for? Well, we do it because we want to be part of something greater than ourselves. It's a passion. It's a purpose. We want to serve. We want to defend our country. We want to defend our family. We want to defend our friends, right? And that was my mentality. Had little to do with the benefits, even though the recruiters always talk about the benefits. So right off the bat, I realized that you can create a successful organization where money is not the primary motivation, right? The way you do that is you create a value system. Okay, so that's what I did. So I said, look, we're gonna be a smaller player, and we're gonna take the total market, and we're gonna really dominate a smaller segment of that market, which is the VA market, right? And we're gonna attract other people who share our values. So we put the values right on the wall. And the beautiful thing about having culture and vision and values in a mission is that people that align and share those values will be attracted to you, and the ones that won't will be detracted from you. And that's a wonderful thing, because you never have to hire or fire, and you never have to worry about commission splits, because it's not about the money. It's about people who want to leverage real estate to accomplish their why and their passion and purpose. It's an amazing thing that we were able to accomplish. But it went back to, like I said, of what I learned as a kid and what I learned, in the military. Now, the other thing was, and the organization that you mentioned, great organizations, the difference now, though, is things are changing right now, right? There's new models, as you mentioned, that have come out, new real estate models, new compensation models, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So I did buy a big brokerage. So I had my boutique and I had my big brokerage name. And I thought this big brokerage was going to help propel EGA Homes. And it was actually the opposite. And the reason for that, it was nothing against these brokerages as times change. But the reason for that was the fact that I found more people Moses' age at that time that are really more about passion, purpose, why, and they want to work for an organization that has values rather than a vanilla organization that'll take anybody that has a heartbeat and a real estate license, right? I don't agree on that model, because as you mentioned and I reinforced, you want high output, low liability. You don't want high liability, low production, because there's a cost associated with doing business. So if I bring in anybody, I'm increasing my liability inherently, because there's more bodies if they're not trained properly. And I'm not saying there's a lot of great training out there, so that's not a stab at anything there. But if they are high liability and low production, those outcomes are telling a story. And the story is that you really need to incorporate a value system that others will be attracted to, because now you're mitigating that issue of turnover. You're mitigating that issue of let's argue about commission splits. You're mitigating a lot of issues that by hiring people that just share those values, it would completely wipe those issues out. And that's what happened. That's why we have very little turnover, and that's why we're scaling and we're growing in this down market. We're opening new offices.
Yeah, 100%. That's interesting. I just learned something new.
Well,
Yeah, low, low, because I just wrote down like low trained agents. Well, and again, this is you could adapt it to any business, but low trained real estate agent equals
100%.
high liability.
Well, think about it. So,
And
you read you have a license, real estate license. So you've
mhm,
read your RPA, your listing contract,
mhm,
right? You know who wrote those?
mm-mm,
Lawyers, right?
mm,
Lawyers.
mhm,
When I got in
mhm,
the business, the RPA was 5 or 6 pages.
mm,
Now it's what 15. I mean, it's almost a book now because of
mhm,
all the lawsuits and changes in the real estate industry. It's what happens, right? As time goes on, there's
mhm,
more liability. People get sued. There's other issues. Technology becomes a part, et cetera, et cetera. So if you think about it, if you're bringing in somebody that just says, "Look, I just want to do this as a hobby," right? If you don't take the time to really understand those contracts, really understand the ins and outs, and you're just like you alluded earlier, looking for that paycheck, something's gonna
mm,
gonna gonna fall short,
mhm.
right? So back to your original question is you really have to come in with the right intention, and you really have to come in with the right mindset to be successful.
Yeah, 100%. I 100% agree too. That's interesting. Um, I wanna shift gears over to the marketing side. Moses, being in the industry for 3 years, have you noticed some reoccurring issues on the marketing side? Maybe not only for the homes, but do you also do, like, marketing for, like,
Yep.
Ruben himself? Oh, okay, cool.
Mhm.
So did you have you noticed in your 3 years any sort of reoccurring problems on the marketing side for real estate agents or brokers?
Yeah, definitely. I think not only in real estate, but any industry, especially when the market is in tough times, marketing is the first thing to go because unlike sales, when you put money into it, you don't always see an immediate return. Marketing is much more of a long-term thing that you kind of see indirect results from. Whereas sales, if you spend $10 on sales, you better see 20 in return. And so a
Mhm,
lot of agents, when things are tough and the markets change, which they have a lot since I started only 3 years ago, marketing is one of the first things that they kick out the door, and they wonder why they don't have income coming in.
mhm,
Um, and then those that do stick with their marketing, they do 1 foot in, 1 foot out. They're not fully communicating what it is that separates them from another real estate agent. Especially with new real estate agents, you see that they definitely kind of feel like they have to fit into a mold of a real estate agent,
mhm,
when the beauty of being self-employed and being your own individual name as a brand is what is it about you that separates you from other people.
yeah,
Somebody that looks at Ruben and thinks that they're a great fit, they wouldn't be a great fit for the agent 2 doors down that mainly works with probate sales
mm,
and things like that.
yeah,
Um,
100%.
People, going back to niching down and you're kind of marketing that way. One of the best benefits of niching down is that you become well known within a community, within your passion. And I think a lot of real estate agents make the mistake of being too broad and trying to do everything at once.
Mhm,
And like I said, that applies to every business, including my own. That's
yeah,
why I started with the niche of real estate listings and then expanded that to the overall marketing aspect and brand aspect of a real estate agent. And that
mhm,
eventually will grow on and help marketing for other businesses and things like that. But starting small, focusing on community and becoming a specialist at that, and getting people and your clients to understand who you are as not only a person, but as a real estate agent.
yeah,
Um, I think if you are able to show your personality through your brand, that is what's going to separate you from the average real estate agent and
yeah,
help you not only get more business, but become more relatable to your clients and create a better relationship with those clients.
Yeah, and
mhm,
to add a little something to that too. Right now is a pivot year, right? And I always use that example is you don't want to be the blockbuster that could have been Netflix.
mhm,
So Blockbuster was offered Netflix for $50 million and turned it down, for different reasons. But one of the reasons was they really couldn't see people streaming movies rather than physically going into a storefront and exchanging.
mm,
Well, Netflix has a market cap right now of $150 billion. So it's
mhm,
probably that's one of those oh shit moments. You're like, oops, I missed that one, right? But the point is this: the point that I wanted to add, and Moses does a great job of this, is that we are all pivoting right now, right? Again, we talked about purpose, passion, culture, and all that. That's critical. Niche, organic growth. That's critical. But if you're not pivoting right now, right, then at some point there's a good possibility that you might be Blockbuster, right? When there's a wonderful opportunity for you to not only be Netflix, but you're going to be the technology that's, 5 steps ahead of Netflix, which we haven't even seen yet. Okay.
Yes.
But if your mindset is not on progress and growth, right, then you're going to miss something. But to Moses' point is business is counterintuitive sometimes, right? When you hit a tough market like this one where things are changing, people have a tendency to go into a defensive position. Like, oh, shoot, I got to get defensive. Right now is the time to be offensive. Yeah. Right now is where you put your foot on the gas, you market more, right? Because you have a better opportunity of gaining more market share right now when everybody's in a defensive hiding position. So going back to the military, and this is going to sound completely counterintuitive, but business is counterintuitive. It's doing opposite of what everybody else is doing. And that's the definition of differentiation, right? How you differentiate yourself from the competition. But when I was just turned 18 going through infantry school, right, we were learning about ambushing. We were in the defensive position and we got ambushed. Well, the rule of thumb in the Marine Corps is you attack the bullet. You go toward the bullets, which is completely counterintuitive. When somebody starts shooting, you want to run and go hide. The chances of success, whether it's in the military or in business, is you need to go toward those bullets right now. You need to put your foot on the gas, find a way to pivot, find a way to market more, right, and differentiate yourself, because right now is an amazing opportunity for you to grow. So if you look at the history of business, a lot of companies like Disney, for example, were created in down markets, right? You need to develop that niche and find out how can I leverage these downtimes when everybody's taking a defensive position to really either grow or create an innovative, maximized, efficient product or service that nobody else is thinking about right now. This is a perfect time for that.
Dude, attacking the bullets. Do you have that in the office somewhere? Yeah, do you have that in the office somewhere as one of the values?
I actually
really?
do. I actually do. Yeah, now you got to zigzag. Don't get me wrong. This isn't the Civil War where you just walk into them. You're zigzagging, right? The Native American community taught us that. So, but you definitely need to attack that. You need to attack the attacker. And then when you do that, then the attacker becomes the prey and the whole mindset shifts, right? But right now, sticking to business is a perfect opportunity to capture more market share right now.
Yeah, 100%. Moses, did you play basketball?
I did not. No, I played baseball when I was really young. And then the second I started football, I cut ties with baseball and just dug all into football.
Yeah, dude, the reason why I asked is because I did the same thing, but with basketball. So I went from baseball to football, then basketball. And so in basketball, I heard it so many times from multiple coaches of even when we're on defense, we're attacking offense.
Absolutely.
And so we're always in this attack mode.
Absolutely.
At all times. And so because the moment that you start to get defensive, I feel like it shows fear. And in a especially in a like kill or be killed world, like your competitor takes advantage of that fear.
Absolutely. And apprehension. Absolutely.
And so in the business world, it's more like your competitor is the market. I mean, would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, exactly. So you made I love the fact that you incorporated sports into that as well. So football was my primary sport. Football was his primary. But I played basketball for many years. I actually coached basketball for many years. So in basketball, one of the number one rules is you initiate contact. Right? You initiate contact. Remember that. You initiate contact for many reasons, right? You either draw the foul, maybe a +1, whatever. But you initiate that contact. And then psychologically, again, defenses start to respect you because you're initiating. Like, I'm going at you. I'm getting to that basket, right? And either go up or dish or what have you, okay? But to your point, it is exactly what you should be doing right now in business. You should be initiating contact in business right now, 100%. And the fact that you brought that up, I think, speaks well because you definitely want to initiate contact, right? Differentiate yourself, as we mentioned earlier, and do things that are just so much different than everybody else with an aggressive business mindset. So that's what I was alluding to as far as people that are taking a defensive position versus an offensive position. So your point's well taken.
So Ruben just explained how to differentiate yourself. Can you explain how to then communicate that message to that audience?
Yeah, I think the first step is the most important part, which is often skipped, and it's what you just said. It's being able to clearly state and identify who your target is. I think a lot of us say we want to work with this many people, so we just make a flyer that says first-time home buyers work with me. Boom. Instead of saying, okay, what is a first-time home buyer? Is it a kid that just got out of college and doesn't know how to become a homeowner? He just knows that there's people out there that home owns, but they don't know how to become a homeowner. Is it someone with low income and they don't see a future where they could possibly own a house because they only make, less, just below the average in their state? So I think identifying that person and their needs and kind of the roadblocks that are in front of them is the first key step. And then positioning yourself as not a hero that's going to come save the day for them, but a guide to show them the path to success.
Correct.
And so outlining, okay, you're where you're at. That's okay. There's a lot of people where you're at right now. You're not isolated in this, terrible situation that you can't get out of. There's a way to get out of it. Here are the 3-4 steps you need to get out of that situation and achieve your goal. So yeah, the first thing would be identify who your person is and the problem they're facing. Outline 3 to 4 steps, simplified on how they can get out of that situation. Show them the success that they will have when they follow those steps, but also the failure that they could have if they don't. Because I'm not a fan of, focusing on the negativity in marketing, being like, if you don't do this, you're going to fail and this is going to happen to you. I think it's much more powerful to, yes, acknowledge, like, if you don't follow certain steps, you're going to see certain failures. But if you do, the reward is well worth the time and energy.
100%. Yeah. And to Moses' point is when you're identifying that person, you need to know who you are. You should be able to identify if people ask me, why are you doing this? Why the EGA? Why VHA? Why boost the suits? Simple, to eradicate veteran suicide. And they're like, whoa, what's the connection? Right? That's your point, right? Yep. What's the connection, right? We've all lost friends to suicide, unfortunately, lost Marines and veterans to suicide. And we all lost, Marines and veterans in combat scenarios. But if you don't understand your fundamental mission, your fundamental reason for doing what you're doing and who you are, it doesn't mean you won't be effective necessarily, but in my opinion, you will not optimize. You will not be as maximally effective as you can be. And that's what we're all striving for.
I'm sorry, I'm taking notes while y'all talk.
I don't mind. Yeah, because then to Moses' point, when you say find, and then earlier you said go find, really what happens is that when you understand who you are, and then as Moses mentioned, you put that plan together, they come to you. Yeah. We don't recruit, we attract. Right? So there's a difference. There's a push strategy and there's a pull strategy. We're not pushing anything. Like I'm not trying to push my agenda. You cannot fit a circle in a square slot. Even if you tried, you can't. Right? But if you put the right mission, vision, values out there, you're going to attract people that share that. And that's a huge distinction. Again, as I mentioned earlier, because it mitigates turnover, mitigates argument about commission and compensation. It just gets rid of all that mess.
Yep.
Right? That's the key. But Moses' plan can effectively bridge that gap.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it affects the company in a way that when you're clear on that, it not only attracts the right customers, and then you also increase customer value. But not only that, but also from the real estate agent's perspective, real estate broker's perspective, which is attracting the right real estate agents to service those clients. 100%. And so it's like you get satisfaction on both sides, the people that are servicing and then the people that are being serviced.
Correct. And so like our interviews are exactly that. They're not traditional interviews. It's not like our interviews are really identifying who you are, what your passion and purpose is, not pushing what the brokerage is all about. Like your standard interview is like, oh, we do this. And the first thing they lead with is money. Oh, we're at a 90 or an 80 or 100 or whatever it is. It doesn't really matter. That's the first thing they do is push. And we're like, So Cameron, tell me a little bit about yourself first. I need to know more about you so that I can effectively help you get to from point A to point B, because your objective as a human being is to accomplish your life's goals and objectives, not to go work for a brokerage.
Yep.
Well, for me to be of value to you, right, and you to be an asset to the firm, right, I have to know a lot about you first. I have to do more listening than I do talking.
Yeah. Right.
And so once I identify that, then I can effectively put a plan and say, hey, here's how we work. Here's how. Or there's many times where I say, you know what, Cameron, no offense, professionally speaking, we're not the right fit for you. And they're shocked. Like, whoa, what do you mean? Well, we're not the right fit because in this last 30-minute conversation, which is great to meet you, we'll leave as friends. I've heard you say I like 50 times.
Mhm.
I want this, and I want this commission, and I'm going to do, and I da da da. And we're a we culture. We're not an I culture,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? So if you look at our firm, a lot of the agents will help each other without me being there. I'm an owner, not an operator. So without me being there, they're taking their own initiative to help each other be successful.
Yeah.
That's when you know you have a good company culture. Because it's
Yeah.
a 1099 environment, which means they're all automatically independent contractors with an independent mindset. So how do you convert an independent contractor mindset to a collaborative teamwork mindset and culture? If you
Mhm.
don't have a way of bridging that gap, you're going to continue to have issues. I'm
Yep.
telling you, 100%.
Yeah.
And
100% agree.
Moses delivers that message.
Yeah. 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 He delivers that message to all the real estate agents that you guys end up attracting to EGA.
And you hit it on the
That's
head, too. It's all value, value, value. It's all value driven. If
yeah.
we can't be of value to you, then why do we want to work together?
It's 100%. So it's so funny you left off on that value. That's exactly what that I was gonna go, because on the communication side, I always 100% believe. So I'm in the I really I'm fascinated by human experience and behavior, and this is why I'm like on the marketing side, because like this is all we're engineering is a better way to give a before the transaction. What me and Moses are doing, we're engineering a better way for them to experience our brand.
Love
Um,
that.
when it comes to value, I always see this question in the groups. So when I'm in like Facebook groups on obviously Facebook, and I like to be in there because I just learn. I'm just learning the audience. That's all I'm doing. All the questions that I see pop up is directly related to specific problems that everybody's doing.
Sure.
Everybody has. And so like one of the ones that I see all the time is like, what content do I post? Like I understand that
Mm,
posting content it's important, but like what do I post? Like what would
Yeah.
you advise them?
First question I would ask is, who is your audience and what do they need to hear? So like for the example of first time home buyers, most of it is going to be education based. And so that, we call that education marketing. So explaining in your videos, what is an FHA loan? What is a home buying program? Things like that, just education based.
Mhm.
Now a lot of that is a little oversaturated, and every day I open my phone and I see you don't have to buy a house with 20% down. So there is such thing as, beating a dead bush in that
Mhm.
sense. But also I think kind of showing how you have helped other clients is a great one.
Mhm.
Just like how on Google and Facebook you'll have a review, being able to show that in your videos. When you have a buyer, don't just post a flyer saying, "Oh, sold house, boom." That's average marketing today. And that's where you can use video to your advantage. Do a video testimony with your buyer, a video of them popping champagne and spraying it with their family that you helped,
mhm.
and delivering the message of, I helped this family achieve home ownership for the first time, not I had a transaction that sold for this much and so going above surface level and really figuring out what it is your clients want to hear and need to hear is how I would
Yeah.
go about it.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly. Yeah. It's exactly where the value comes from. I always say like value comes from the valuable content is addressing the problems that your target persona is dealing with.
Yep.
Like
Mhm.
that's valuable content.
Yep.
And for it's so interesting because we have such a huge opportunity. And this is where I'm just combining what both of you guys are saying. Differentiation and then communicating that differentiation. And
Yep.
so it's like today, it's like we have such a great opportunity with all of the chaotic things that are happening in the world that are
Sure.
affecting real estate, like the interest rates and COVID and just everything that's going on. It's making it more, especially for a first time home buyer, it's making it more overwhelming for them to make that decision to go out and buy a home.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure they're talking to their friends, they're talking to their family, and everybody's saying a bunch of different stuff. And and I think this is where you're saying it's like the content is a little bit oversaturated when it comes to real estate agents saying the same thing. Hey, here's the 10 steps to buying a home. Great.
Yep.
Um, Now it's like there's specific problems that they're dealing with. And that's where the problem. That's where the value comes from.
Yes.
And it's like
Yeah.
finding those specific problems. Yeah, great. There's a generic 10-step formula to buying a home. That's great. But now how does it apply to me? And then if
Exactly.
you were actually to if a real estate agent were to actually take the time to ask that question to first-time home buyers
Correct.
of what was the most challenging thing that you dealt with when you bought your home? It doesn't even have to be their database, like, because a lot of
Yep.
real estate agents that I talk to, they're like, "Well, I'm new, like, I don't have, clients," and it's like, somebody around you has bought a home before. Ask
Your
them.
sphere of
Sure.
influence is the first
Mhm,
people you should be contacting.
mhm, mhm.
Yep.
Yeah,
And to your point, start with having a vague message where and trying to figure out who do I talk to online, because you want millions of views on social media, right? So you think you have to talk broadly to a million people, when in
yep,
reality you should identify one person and talk directly to them through the camera. Like, one of
yep,
the worst things you could do in a video is start off with, "Hey guys, it's Moses back with EGA Homes," instead, or being like, some type of intro like, "Hey everybody." Nobody wants to talk to Nobody wants to feel like they're being talked to in a group of people. They want to have a one-on-one conversation with
Personalized.
you.
Yeah, for sure.
yep,
So when you say,
yep.
"This is how you buy a house as a college student with debt still," that's
Damn.
going to speak to that one college student scrolling on TikTok that says, "Oh shoot, that's still possible for me, even though I have $40,000 in debt."
Mhm,
Now, it might not be, buying a $600,000 house in, a great area right off the bat, but you can outline the path to get there. And so
yep,
that's what your marketing should be. It's speaking to an individual person and then outlining how to get there specifically. And then obviously showing how you've done that with people.
That's value.
yeah.
Sure.
100%. Very well said, Moses. Very well said. I sometimes wonder, I got to a point where I know the answer to that question is just because real estate agents aren't taught that by their broker or when they're going through the schooling to become an actual real estate agent.
Correct.
They're not taught to market. They're not taught to learn how to sell. They're not taught to do any of that stuff on the business side. And I feel like that's why a lot of them struggle, is because you're actually being a 1099 contractor, you're running your own business.
Sure.
And yeah, and but you're not taught to run your own business.
Correct.
There's no once you get into the industry. I know it was the same thing for me. The first brokerage I went to when I was a real estate agent was KW. And again, like I said, they had everything, but me not knowing business, I was like, I don't know what to like. What
You don't know what you don't
It's a
know.
great point.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah,
I
yeah.
would, from my 20 plus years of experience, very few real estate professionals either have a P&L or understand how to read and apply that P&L to help you navigate and make business decisions.
Mhm,
That's your number one instrument, right? That's your
mhm,
GPS as you're flying that plane. That's
mhm,
your GPS that's helping that plane land safely and on time and effectively,
mhm.
right? So your point's well taken. So that's what we do. We incorporate that financial literacy piece. The other big problem that realtors have are taxes. They got to pay their quarterlies, right?
Mhm.
Right. That's another function, right? And budgeting, things like that. So the point's well taken.
Yeah, 100%. That's amazing. I love it. One, I do know you guys are outside, and so I know it said that it was gonna go to 12, but I'm like, the more and more I'm like staring at the camera, I want to like come drive over some sunblock for you guys if
Oh,
you
it's all
haven't
good. It's all good.
if you haven't sunblocked yourself already. And so finishing off, do you guys have any? I like to do this with every single one of our guests. It's like just as a thank you, promote anything that you guys have going on.
Yeah,
Feel
for
free to go
sure.
ahead. Mhm.
Most of my content is posted on Instagram. It's mg3.media. You can find me also at mg3-media.com. And most of my content is geared towards real estate agents, but like I said, start small, grow big. We're going to be putting out content that applies to all business
Sure.
owners in general. And marketing tactics in one industry, especially if it's service based, will apply to other service based industries. So yeah, check me out there. And then obviously EGA Homes, we're doing some great things. The Instagram is EGA Homes. And we're doing some great things with our own agents that are already here, already trained, and developing them. And we post a ton of videos of Ruben actually teaching classes and meetings. So we set up a camera in the back and show that, so that you kind of have almost a window into what we teach on a daily basis. And then just we're on YouTube as well, EGA Homes, and then Boots to Suits. We also have a podcast that we are producing with that, and interviewing other veterans that are interested in the real estate market, or just telling their story and kind of how they dealt with the transition out of the military. But I'll let Ruben talk more about the Boots to Suits program.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So Boots to Suits is a 12-week fundamental real estate program where we not only help the either transitioning military, those that are coming off of active duty, spouses, veterans, or reservists. We have a 12-week cohort that meets 4 times a year, and we teach the fundamentals of real estate, help you get licensed. But it's everything you talked about. It's about how to deliver value. It's time blocking, financial literacy, P&L. It's everything you need to run a successful business, as Moses alluded to. And as you mentioned earlier, it applies to any business. So it is geared for real estate because we're helping, as I mentioned, my whole thing is eradicating suicide. And so by helping military transition out effectively, going from a job to having a stable life is a big part of that mission. And so that's why Boots to Suits was created. EGA Homes is our full service real estate firm. And again, we have our mission, vision, and values out there. If it's something that you align with, we welcome you. And if you don't, we understand as well. We can collaborate and work as friends. And then I co-founded a nonprofit in 2015. It's called the Veterans Housing Alliance. It's vha1.org. And we provide permanent and temporary housing to homeless veterans, again, to mitigate and eradicate suicide, and also help veterans purchase their first home. And so it's 100% volunteer. Those are 3 passions right now, 4, obviously, in total. But if you want to be a part of any of those, please reach out. We're looking for warriors that believe in that mission and want to go after it as effectively as we have.
Yeah, 100%. I'll make sure to throw links to all your guys' stuff in the description once I post it.